Hi, I'm Eileen Bild. I'm with OTEL Talk. And today I have Lori Walker. Hi, Lori.
Hi, Eileen. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you are welcome. We've known each other quite a while now. We've been in some anthology books together. And today we're going to be talking about your contribution to Wellness GPS, Get Prepared for Success. And you are a USUI Reiki Master, Holy Fire Reiki Master, contributing author to multiple books, and I commissioned Notary up in Pennsylvania. So I look forward to talking about your story because, you know, it's very empowering and inspirational. And I know that you wanted to share a little bit about those books, other books that you've also been a contributing author in.
Yes, you and I met whenever my very first story was called Mary Queen, and it was in Ma'am's Miracles. That's
Yes.
how you met. And I did my first interview with you, so it's good. It's good to come full circle and do this again.
Always.
And yes, yeah. 2 or 3 years later, phenomenal. And then I was in the Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness. The name of my story in this book was There's Something About Mary. The first story was very, very, very sad. And the second story was kind of fun. I call it After the Storm, after the divorce. And it was our adventures together in that. And then I was in Teresa Velarde's Daily Gift of Gratitude. And the name of my story in this book was We Will Always Be Friends. It was about a guy that I met 20 years ago, and we're still friends. So I wrote about him. Oh yeah, I wrote about him in the Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness. And then I was not in the second book, Win the Wellness War. I need to take some time off, especially to build my notary business. So and while I'm thinking about it, what I was watching all the promotions and all the authors, and I did win a coaching session with you. So
oh, you did? That's right. That's right. Yeah. Almost forgot about that.
So last year we coached, you and I, for 10 weeks. And what's great is I told you that I wanted to write the story, and you said, and I told you what it would be about, and you said, write the story and I'll interview you on my show.
Well, here we are.
So yes, this is Wellness GPS, Get Prepared for Success, we're talking about. And I also wanted to share this too, is there's a workbook. Peggy Williams wrote a workbook, All Things Wellness. So this is her workbook. I didn't write a story in this one, but yeah. So yeah, so my latest story is called A Zebra Can't Change Its Stripes. And it's about my brother, my oldest brother, and his life. And he passed away 10 years ago. So.
Well, and in your story, thank you for sharing all those books, by the way. And, you know, looking at all of those, it kind of takes me into a place of, wow, you know, there's so much content in all those books that can be beneficial, inspirational, rewarding. So you've got a plethora there of things that you can turn to when, you know, you want an uplift or you want a reminder about something, especially the daily gift of gratitude, right? I think having gratitude every day is so important, especially in today's world.
Absolutely. Yeah. I did want to say another opportunity that came my way when I was doing the Fourfold Formula. I was also a blogger for All Things Wellness. So I was one of the original 3. It was me and Faith Pierce and Christine Hersom. So we kind of started the ball rolling, and then Cindy Wilkins came along, and just so many more. And that is thriving on Peggy's website, All Things Wellness.
Yeah, isn't it great how doors open that you never expected?
Just unimaginable, and it just all came from a place of, well, like when I wrote Mary Queen, I didn't even, it was the first time I ever wrote anything, and I didn't even know if I was good. Like I just wanted to tell our story, and I wanted to see if it was good enough. And so I sent it to an editor friend of mine, and I said, just tell me what you think. And I still have the message, and she said, she lives in Tennessee, and she said, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I just read your story, and I can't stop crying.
Oh,
She said, you have to publish this because it will help women heal. And
absolutely.
her words, because the first person that read it, he said, "Don't." This is the same person that I had. The other person that I read about, he said, "Don't publish that. Do not publish that." And then whenever my friend Gina encouraged me to, I said, "I'm going to listen to the editor." Okay.
Right. Well,
So I did.
has he reread the story since then?
Well, he has the copy, the fourfold formula for all things wellness, because he's in it, and he read all three of my stories, and whenever he read the one in Wellness GPS, he said, "This is the best you've written so far."
There you go. Okay, well, he had his own, gauge, I guess, that he was
Yeah.
coming from, but as anything in life, the more that you practice or the more that you put effort into it, the better you become. It's all about becoming the better version of oneself, right? And I think writing, as a general rule, is cathartic for people, especially in these kinds of books where you share personal stories and you open yourself up to vulnerability and to the memories of things that maybe can be hard to talk about. But you've done a phenomenal, awesome job, and the story about your brother, just it is heartwarming, but heart wrenching at the same time. And I think a lot of people have gone through and are going through similar situations. So I'd like for you to share today, some things that you can highlight in your experience with your brother that can give others hope based on what they have been through or going through and may still be struggling or will be struggling, and how you've come through the experience. So share a little bit about what happened.
Well, I start the story out where it's the day that he passed. It's the night that he passed, and I talk about I'm on my way to the hospital, and I explain why, and then I do a flashback to our childhood. So then I kind of start from the beginning, and the story flows all the way back to that night. And so the end of the story is I got there at 6:30, and the events that happened that the night that he passed. So my brother he struggled for years with a heroin addiction and alcoholism, and the way I wanted to write the story is I didn't want to put him down. I didn't want to degrade him. There were bad things that he did and bad things that happened, but I didn't want the story to be focused on that. I wanted to talk about just the dichotomy of loving someone and then dealing with their addiction and the things that they do whenever they're under the influence of whatever substance. But I wanted to show that no matter what, there was love underneath it all, and
Right.
love and forgiveness.
And I could tell in your story there was tremendous love. He didn't start out with those addictions. He was normal and successful. And what do you think was the turning point for him? I mean, did you ever figure out, what caused him to turn to addiction?
I asked my dad this question, and he said his answer just came right away, and he said peer pressure. He
Hmm.
wanted to fit in with his friends, and then you get that feeling, and then you just want to keep that. You just chasing the high, you just want to keep doing it because you want to
Right.
look cool and you want to fit in, and I think that he hung out with a lot of guys that were older than him, so he was trying to fit in, I
Got
think,
it.
and then
Right.
it
And that can be
just got out of
difficult,
control.
to not feel worthy enough or like you need to prove yourself to others and then feel some sort of disappointment for whatever reason. And I believe that can lead people down a dark path or the wrong path, similar to, what your brother found himself on. As a Reiki master teacher, I'm not sure if you teach, sorry, Reiki master and Holy Fire Reiki Master, you understand that mind, body, and spirit connection. And did you try to understand what was going on with him from that perspective, from the mind, body, spirit, soul, and how that all played into it?
This is an excellent question because I didn't think about it until right now when you bringing this up. But 10 years ago, I didn't know anything about Reiki, so I couldn't apply anything. It was just, he knew that I had a soft spot for him. So he did take advantage of me a couple times, money, or he knew that I would do things for him. But now, so the point being that I didn't really understand then how it all connected. But now when I look back and I reflect, it's so obvious. Like I can see it and I understand it now. And you wish you would have known then. You maybe could have made a difference, but I mean, it happened the way it was supposed to happen. So
what would you say is the key understanding that helps you to be at peace and have come to terms with his experience and your experience with that?
I'm learning to answer with the first thought that comes into my mind because it's usually, and it's another thing that my parents said that they talked about, and this is a really hard concept for some people, but my mom would pray about the situation and his behavior, and my dad would say, what you're looking for is thy will be done, God's will. This has nothing to do with you personally. Do you understand what I mean? Like
right.
This is out of your hands. You're part of it, but it's about how you react. So yeah, whenever. So it's responsibility, each one of us individually.
So the word, you're talking about the first thought that comes to your mind. While you were saying that, the word forgiveness showed up in my mind. So how does that play into the experience and your capability and ability to share and show forgiveness?
While he was alive, it was really hard. It was really hard. Towards the end, I had to step away from him. Like it was too much. I had to. He made my son uncomfortable, and I didn't. And that was the breaking point where I'm like, okay, now John's uncomfortable. We're gonna have to ask you to step away for a little while. And I felt so guilty about that. And my other sister stepped in and supported him, but it was too much. And this is gonna sound weird too, but after he passed, forgiveness was easy because the conflict isn't there anymore, and you can see, you remember the good, and you don't focus as much on the bad things.
Right. So. That's beautiful. I love that. So there was an experience. You said zebras can't change its stripes, so there's a symbolism for that title. And there was an experience that happened in your brother's last day in the hospital. So kind of talk about both of those and how they tie together.
All right, I don't want to get upset. It's a little emotional. A zebra can't change its stripes is something my brother always would say about himself. So he kind of chose his spirit animal as a zebra, and kind of like a leopard can't change his stock, but he spots, but a zebra. And I thought about that, and when you think of the symbolism of it, you can take it both ways. You could say, be proud of who you are because you can't change your stripes, or you could feel helplessness that you can't do anything about it. And he used it as helplessness. Like, I just gave up. I am who I am, and that this is me, you know, whatever. So I struggled how to tie it into the story and what my view is. And the very last line says, the very last sentence of the story is, and yes, a zebra can't choose to change its stripes, but it can always choose to change its course.
It's true.
Which
It is true.
Tied in with the wellness GPS theme, you know, your GPS. So you can change your course. You can't change your stripes, but you can definitely change your course.
Absolutely. So kind of share a little bit about what happened. There was a kind of spiritual, catch your breath experience.
Yes. Okay. So I'm trying to think of describing it the best possible way. There were 9 of us in his hospital room, and it was just so weird. It was so uncomfortable, and at the time his body had deteriorated. Like, he was in hospice care, so he was unresponsive for 3 days, and so there were 9 of us, and we were all just sitting there. It was just awkward, and my sister-in-law starts talking about her son's hockey game, and I just lost it quietly in my head. I'm like, my brother's dying and you're talking about hockey. I just needed to get out because it was just claustrophobic. So I got into the waiting room, and my niece came out, his daughter, and she reached for my hand and she squeezed it and she said, "Hey, Lord, can you tell me some good stories about my dad?" And it was just beautiful. And I said, "Yes, I can." And then more and more family members came out, and then we all started telling her stories. And so it turned into so inappropriate, but we were all laughing. We were all laughing hysterically. It was just something that my family usually does, but it was crazy. And then my brother-in-law came out and said that he passed. And I talk about that later in the story, that he left this earth while we were celebrating his life. So, and I just always really wanted to believe that he saw that and that he understood, and I believe that he did. But so anyway, couple of days after the funeral, my dad and I talk about the rain that night. The rain that night was so significant. I talk about it in the very beginning of the story. I talk about it as a bridge to the final night, and then this is the third time I talk about it. It was just so. It was April, but it was so cold, and it was like this icy rain, and it was just this raging storm. So while all of us were in the waiting area, my father and my brother-in-law were still in his room, and there was a high window on the back wall, and it was fastened with metal latches, and the wind just kept picking up speed, and it started rattling and shaking. Now, before I go on, I wasn't there. This is just my dad's story, okay? Which I 1000% believe him, all right? So the wind is picking up and shaking this window, and it's rattling, and all of a sudden it just burst wide open, and all this water comes drenching onto the floor, and then the wind's just blowing, and my dad and my brother-in-law look at each other like, "Whoa." That was weird, okay? And so my dad just got back up and relatched it, and we just thought it was the wind, you know? So shortly after that is when the nurses came in and said that he was gone. And that's when my brother-in-law came out and told us. But when you reflect later on, days after, and my dad's telling me the story, and I don't think my dad really got it. He might have, but I certainly saw. I certainly wanted to see. To me, there was no question that it was my grandmother coming to take my brother's soul home. It was just, I'm still getting shivers because I just think it was so special. I read about my grandmother too, just briefly in there, and it talked about I think she came and took him home. So
I'm curious, did you feel any shift in the energy when you guys were all in the outside of the room just prior to him passing? And then when you found out he passed, did you feel, any kind of change happen?
I can't say that I did, because it wasn't, the feelings, the emotion, and I wasn't looking for it. I mean, you're just caught up in the moment. And like I said, I didn't understand energy back then the way that I do now. It was just the normal feelings of, I mean, just to think of that moment, we're laughing, and then my brother-in-law comes out, and so we've gone from one extreme to 0 to 60 in like a second. So it was just all this tumultuous emotion. And I do write in the story too that we all sit around his bed, and everybody said goodbye. And then when it came to me, like I had dreamt about it earlier in the week, and I don't know if it's a premonition or it's just my mind. And so I just asked everybody to hold hands, and we sang Amazing Grace, 2 verses of it. And I talk about the lyrics had never hit me so profoundly before, because I could see him standing in front of God, and they were locked, like their eyes, like that. You don't even need any words, that telepathic connection.
Right.
And they just looked into each other's eyes, and Joe could just feel the love and the forgiveness from God. So that was pretty intense too.
Well, that whole experience from the time he shifted into the addiction to the time he passed, that whole journey right there is a tough journey. It's do you feel like there were any takeaways from that journey, but also writing about it and putting it into this book?
Well, and I mean, I may be off the subject a little bit here, but what I was thinking was, a couple of months before he passed, he was talking to one of our pastors. Her name was Pastor Jody, and so my mom felt, and I think he kind of awakened a little bit because he was raised with that. We were not United Methodist. It wasn't like he didn't know anything. He just got away from it. Excuse me. So my mom was happy that she thought that he was gonna. Everything was okay. He was gonna go. He was gonna go to heaven. Sorry, it's so hard. She had a lot of comfort in her soul knowing that. So I think that helped too. But as far as you asked us about the takeaways,
right? So your takeaway of the experience through writing about it and putting it into a story.
That it took me about 3 or 4 months to write it because I didn't know how I wanted it to. I didn't know what I wanted to say. I wanted to show one traumatic in my life. There are people, I always say, who have it way worse than I do, or experience things so much more difficult than I did. So I don't want to ever diminish anybody else's experience. But when I was 16, I'm just gonna say it. I mean, he shot up in front of me, and that was not fun, So nobody ever knew. I never told anybody that part, but I wanted to show one thing. And here's the thing too, is that with my family, I can't speak for them. I wanted to write solely from my perspective, what I saw. I didn't want to assume what anybody else, because there are things that happen with each one of them, different relationships and situations. So I can't speak for them. I was only speaking from my experience, which helps form the story, So I always wanted to write this story, and it's been, like I said, it's been 10 years since he passed, and I'm really, really actually proud that I did. I'm surprised and very pleased with the way it was structured and the way that it just came out. You have to start a little bit slow and then build, but it was all natural, and I don't know if I'm gonna write again after this, but I did say that after Mayhem to Miracles.
Well, and here you are, 3 more books later.
Yeah, and I don't know if I have it in me. And it's just one of those things that I have to explore. And when it's right, it'll be right, because I'm like, I don't know how many more dramatic stories I have in me. What else would I write about?
Well, there are other types of stories in life, and not just trauma and the trials and tribulations. There's also success stories, and you might find yourself thinking about how far you come, and maybe something related to your training as a Reiki master, because there's a lot that can be said for that. And the higher awareness that comes about when you start to understand energy and metaphysics. So you never know. Never say never, right?
Right, exactly. I didn't think I'd be here with you.
Well, here
Again,
we are,
years later. Yeah, here we
full
go.
circle, a second
Great.
time around. All
Yeah.
right. Um, so what is something you can share for anyone that's watching this that can give them hope or inspiration if they're going through an experience with a loved one who's addicted, or they themselves might be somewhat addicted, but trying to, having a difficult time coming through, breaking
My
through.
my very first answer is to just I don't want to make it sound easy, but find help. Talk to people. You have to talk to people. You have to find somebody that will listen, understand, guide you, because you're in brand new territory. You don't know how to navigate that. So resources. I mean, I'm a big reader, so anything that any books, people. There are people out there waiting to help. And not maybe not just even spiritually if you're not drawn to that. Just resource, just people. It's all about people.
Right. Well, unfortunately, addiction is part of our human experience, and somehow people get caught up in it who have support, and some people don't have that support. So I think your brother was very fortunate to have the support that he did from his family, and you guys had that beautiful end of life experience with his passing. Um, any last words you want to share?
Um, I did write in. I remember I'm trying to do the first thing that pops in my head. I wrote this story for my nieces and my nephews, and my great nieces and my great nephews. I write that in the very last part in the dedication because they weren't there that night and they don't know what happened, and they don't know, and they only see Uncle Joe as however they see him. I don't want they didn't see the good. There was good there too. So that's what we wanted to celebrate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story and the inspiration. And how can people get in touch with you if they have questions or want to hear more about your experience?
Well, I'm on Facebook. It's Lori J. Walker. Just sounds more official. My writing name, Lori J. Walker. And if you're in the Pittsburgh area, I am a commissioned notary. I just started a business 2 years ago. The email for that is walkernotary20, the number 22 at gmail.com. I'm also involved in locally. One of my friends, one of my former clients, started what's called Book Club Pittsburgh, where we meet twice a month. We pick local Pittsburgh authors, read their books, and then they come to the meeting. So we get to talk to them. It's really, really fantastic opportunity. And she also sponsors the Author Zone. So that's a nationwide program where, and you can look up there on Facebook. They have a website, newly designed website too, theauthorzone.com. And she has a yearly awards program. So I know a couple of media partners for all the names who are winners of a Taz Award. So I just can't stop learning. I just love it. Oh, so the point was, how can I get in touch with me? WalkerNotary22 at gmail.com. On Facebook, Lori J. Walker.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lori. It's always great to interview you, talk to you, share your story. And I'm going to anticipate that we'll be doing this again in the near future when the time is right. So wish you all the best, and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Eileen. It was a wonderful conversation.
You're welcome.
Is it a Let's try.